In today's session, we're going to take a look at macro changes that increase new venture opportunities. And when we look at macro changes, what we're looking at are things that are happening outside of the venture itself, things that are happening in the economy, things that are happening in society, and there are 6 specifically that we're going to take a look at and explore. We're going to look at demographics, we're going to look at psychographics, we're going to look at technical changes, we're going to look at societal changes, we're going to look at political changes, and we're also going to look at regulatory changes. So with that, with some understanding of what's going on, and more importantly, what do we think is going to go on with changes in these 6 areas, this will perhaps turn you on to some opportunities that may align with some of your personal and professional interest. And specifically, a couple of things we're going to talk about are relationships of these pieces. We're going to talk about changes or gaps in the market, and in that sense, it'll help us think about where opportunity may lie, where are things that perhaps other people haven't recognized yet, and what are things that give us some indication that we might have success by entering that market. So there are lots of changes that go on in the marketplace. There are changes in technology. And as we've talked about and looked at things that went on with the launch of a lot of internet firms, a lot of online firms, well, it was the internet that enabled it. As we looked at various software and PC market and home video game market, again, creation of PC, creation of improved and more affordable processors that enabled that to happen. So again, technology can be an enabler. There can be social changes and demographic changes. And by demographics, these are things that are typically observable by people. So it's age, it's ethnicity, it's gender. You can also do it by height and weight. You can also look at income. You can look at education. So lots of different things that are observable and measurable is what we mean by demographics. And then there might be other political and regulatory changes in place as well. So when we look at technology and the starting of a new venture, you probably don't want to develop something that's leveraging an old technology or maybe even a current technology. What happens if I start building apps today for an iPhone 5? Well, when iPhone 5S or iPhone 6, 7, or 8 comes out, depending on when I'm going to launch my app, I might be too late. And or if I am going to launch something that's going to go in a current product, I want to make sure that it's still going to work with a future product, or I can make some minimal revision for it. But again, thinking forward, thinking about where technology is going, if I develop a map application for an iPhone, am I going to have success with that?
No.
People with iPhones need maps? It might be a good idea, but it might be late to the party. There might be many existing competitors and a few big and substantial competitors already in the space. So you don't want to be too late. But if you are going to do something, you want to do something that's going to be properly differentiated from what's out there. We think about, too, the rate and pace of change, and we see that we can forecast kind of what happens and what's going to be coming. If you recognize portable cassette players, is going to lead to CD players, is going to lead to MP3 players, is going to lead to essentially MP3 playing capability on cell phones. What comes next? Say again?
Built into.
Maybe built into you. We looked at Google Glass before. You do not have speakers, but you have sound.
Oh, yeah.
How does it do that? It essentially touches your skull and has this vibration element that bypasses your outer ear and sends the sound into your brain. And this is a product that you can buy now. So this is not a science fiction.
I heard of a watch with a cell phone. Essentially, to talk, you just put your pinky in your ear, and the sound will go up your phones.
Okay, so you heard of a watch that's a cell phone that to talk, you put your pinky in your ear and the sound travels along your hand.
What's up?
So if you're going to talk on the phone, that might be nice. But if you want to listen to music, are you going to walk around with your pinky in your ear? So for radio, maybe not, but for cell phone, maybe. Maybe. But again, you want to think about what's coming next. And when we think about significant changes, big changes tend to lead to new market opportunities. So in that way, as big changes are emerging in the marketplace, there's probably going to be room for lots of different innovation and lots of different competitors to emerge. And again, the bigger the change, particularly if it's a general purpose change, the more you can do with that. So lasers originally were used perhaps for weapons and medical devices, but now we see lasers in a host of things, in checkouts, in printers, in your cell phone, where you can go in what used to be a laser gun of let me, as a checkout person, scan a UPC symbol and get information. We've seen almost kind of a replacement of that with what?
The QR reader?
The QR readers and essentially photography of let me take a picture of a symbol and I can take it with enough high definition that I can decode it and do something that a laser used to do that now you can do with a camera. And commercialization is naturally a key piece of is it going to be profitable or not, of is there going to be enough people that will pay what I need them to pay for my product to be successful. And in that sense, it certainly changes the dynamics of what's going on in the marketplace. Early technology is expensive. So the first cell phone that I bought was what was one of the Motorola brick phones, essentially, which looked somewhat like a pyramid. And this is it laying on its back. So the keys are here. And then there's a hinge. And it's kind of a clamshell design that you opened up, talked into. 1993. 350 bucks.
Wow.
That's cheap.
Was the connection?
So no, again, no internet, no music, no calendar, no smartphone, just phone, minus the smart. You could talk on it.
There's no Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi.
That sucks.
$350 for a phone that did not have a cord. That's what you got. But as technology improved, as more people bought, as it got more affordable to manufacture in high scale, who does not have a phone, a cell phone?
Who does not have a cell phone?
Within the class. So there are 35 of you. So everyone has a cell phone. Who does not have a smartphone? One. Okay, don't be shy. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So roughly 75% of you have a smartphone.
iPhones.
Why?
They're smart.
Cheaper than buying it. If it's our
So let's do hands. Let's do one at a time. Why do you need a smartphone?
I can do more than a regular cell phone.
It can do more. What do you need it to do for you?
I like not having to have multiple devices. Like I used to have a phone and an iPod, but now I have an iPhone, so
Okay, so the music element you like. Let's do this the other way. For the people that don't have a smartphone, why not?
Well, I'd love to have a smartphone. Long story. But, first of all, price, I guess.
Okay, so it's not at a price point that it's worth it for you to pay for yet. And that's central to most decisions of adopting technology.
I've just noticed that, like, among my friends, like, most people that have smartphones like aren't really capable of interacting that well.
Okay. So does a smartphone make you dumb? Which some people argue it does. Yep.
Well, not really the initial price, but the plan is a lot.
Oh yeah, we'll get you a phone for free. We'll get you a smartphone for $50, but we're going to charge you an extra $30 a month forever for a data plan. So again, there's that big add-on cost as well. So pricing comes in a lot of different models. Another element to think about when you're looking at new opportunities is this element of social and demographic change. What social or demographic changes are going on in the U.S.? Even in the last 10 years, let's just do demographic to carve a piece of that off. What's changing?
A lot more old people.
Okay, it's an aging population. So the average age or the number of people that are advanced in their age is increasing at a rapid rate. Most of you probably have more aunts and uncles than you do siblings. Most of you probably had more great aunts and great uncles than you have aunts and uncles. Most of you probably have a sibling, but few have more than one. Very few have the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 that used to be common. So in that way, we see smaller families and we see an aging population. Where is the entrepreneurial opportunity in that?
Old personnel, children.
Yeah, like old people stuff, like catalogs for medicine and
So either medicine and healthcare.
You can get one kid something much more expensive than
Okay. And inversely, if you recognize that families are smaller, and in China often it's one, they're going to spend a lot of money and a lot of attention on the one. And so there's a premium offering in some regions. Somebody mentioned assisted living centers and things of that nature for older folks. You see a lot of that as well. So again, new opportunities there. Social trends. Why do we wear deodorant? Okay, not for health reasons. It's just socially acceptable or socially unacceptable not to. So in that way, again, some things emerge. What about white strips for your teeth? You go in Walmart, you have your Crest white strips, $30 for these little Band-Aid type things that you put on your teeth from time to time.
Are in the package.
It depends.
Let's break it.
But still, something that is a relatively new invention. Why do you need white teeth?
Because it looks.
Because it looks. It's an aesthetic.
People talk.
Socially.
Arguably healthier not to put the white strips on your teeth.
because the white strips don't.
So in that way, again, it's a chemical-induced removal of something that isn't going to hurt you.
Unhealthy teeth.
So again, we have these elements of population and diversity. Just this week it was released that America is no longer the fattest country. And in that sense, again, there's an opportunity there. And you see it, and you've seen it transcend from going into having to find an organic store to an organic aisle being in your grocer off in the corner to the organic products finding their way into the normal aisles. So you have your spaghetti sauce, you have your organic spaghetti sauce. They're side by side on aisle 4 instead of being off in the corner or even not too long ago, not even in the store. So I'm going to speed up a little bit. So when you look at trends and you look at these things, it's an element of recognizing and seeing, again, where markets are going, where products are going, what's being adapted at what rate, what are people interested in paying for, and what can you do to help serve some of those. So in that way, as you see these shifts and as you see these trends, there are more opportunities for entrepreneurs to seize that and to start into that market. The last element that we'll look at within this is political and regulatory, and we see this in a few ways. We see it in deregulation. It hasn't been long that airlines were regulated and that it was illegal to start a new airline in the U.S. There was Delta, there was United, there was Pan Am, a couple of others, but there were a small number of airlines. They were regulated, and there were no new airlines to be birthed. What's the logic in that?
Regulating.
What's the logic of saying, with airlines, we want but a few, and that's all that we're going to allow as a federal government?
So that the government has more control on these companies?
Okay, so the government can have more control, they can be monitored for safety, they can be monitored for air traffic, and in that sense, there was a rationale of that for the airlines to be safe, they need to be few, and they need to be highly monitored and highly regulated. What's the consequence of that?
Higher prices?
It's expensive for consumers, typically. You have but a few options, and you either pay what they want to charge you, or you do without. So in its time, airlines were somewhat of a luxury. It wasn't the type of thing that most people took advantage of. They were expensive, they were largely business travelers, paid for by their company, and again, leisure travel was rare. And now it's somewhat common. And it's common because, again, new people have entered the market, more competition, prices have gone down.
Doesn't the government also do the opposite though, and like encourage like new companies to prevent like monopolies and stuff?
It can work the other direction as well. They can deregulate, which is what happened with the phone systems, and to an extent what happened with banking. And that they changed some policies and things that weren't regulated, they were deregulated, meaning less regulation, less rules, more flexibility, more innovation in the marketplace. Can be good in some ways, can be negative in others, but it can work on either side. And so, again, we see different things happen and different intended and unintended consequences result from that change market forces, that change competitive forces, that change pricing as well. So in summary, when we look at these macroeconomic changes, ideally we're beginning to see some things that let us know there are changes afoot. There are changes going on in the demographics. There are changes going on in technologies. There are changes going on in the political structures. Or there are other things that are going on across them that align with our personal or professional interests. What this also can do is let us know that we're more concerned about what's going to happen in the future. So in that way we can have kind of a forward-looking context and think about how we can solve a problem that's beginning to emerge, how we can act on an opportunity that's beginning to take shape. And in that way we can find some of these changes, we can find some of these gaps, and we can find some opportunities when we're looking at macro context to develop some ideas that we can build new ventures out of.